Yeah, they're
Okay, another video. This one's going to be interesting. Um, the title of this one's going to be that the devil is a scapegoat. It was God all along. So, the devil is a scapegoat. It was God all along. What do I mean by that? And it is relevant what I mean by the devil and what I mean by God, because different people have different. You could ask two different people what the devil is, and they'll probably have a different definition for that. So it's very important what I mean by those things. Um, and yeah. So in a sense, I'm not really speaking about, like, for example, just normal, like, religious, like, entities. Let me just make sure my phone's on silent. I'm not really speaking about these religious entities like Allah or like the Christian God. I'm not really speaking about these entities. Um, I'm just speaking about, when I say God, I'm referring to the absolute truth, the truth that is true, absolutely. And when I'm speaking about the devil, I'm speaking about the self, or when I say the self, I'm speaking about the absolute truth as God. God is the self, the absolute self, um, the self that is itself under any condition. That's God, and that's the absolute. So that's everything, basically. That's infinity, eternity. And what the devil is a schism of the self. Is a schism of the self where the whole macrocosm, like, which has no bounds, is in a sense trapped into a limited form, like a human or something like that. And then that's where ego arises, which is, in my sense, my definition of the ego. Really, even though there is no such thing as the ego, and it's just kind of a mechanism, it's more of a system, like a dynamic system that just operates to appear as if it exists, even though it doesn't. Like, there's not actually a substance there. It can just dynamically react to stimulus and give you thoughts and impressions to where it seems to you as if you exist, even though you don't really exist. Because there's only a blank screen here, like, there doesn't even have to be someone to exist, and there can just be the appearances as if a sentient being exists, and it's not even that like, that needs to appear to a sentient being. No, it doesn't even need to appear to anyone, and in fact, because there's no one there, there's no one to negate that appearance, appearing as if it exists, even though it doesn't really. So the ego is, in a sense, really, because it is the self originally, but the ego is just the self when it's in a schismed form, where it's like in a microcosm form, where it's limited as something particular, and therefore it needs to survive. And see, people imagine, like, the devil as being some other entity, like, down there, but really the devil is the ego. Because what is the devil? The devil is, they always speak about lust, desire, greed. That's all the things that the ego is and has, because as a consequence of its limited nature, and it must have those things because it needs to, like, kind of lust and desire those things to be able to get them to survive. See, like, if you had no desire, you would be dead. Because you wouldn't have the desire to breathe, you wouldn't have the desire to eat. And don't say, oh, you would just do it logically. Like, no, you wouldn't do that logically. Um, unless you reach to a certain level of development where you've transcended the ego, but you're still like you were prior in the ego and you're deciding to stay alive for whatever reason. And then, yeah, you could like kind of logically just do it, even if you don't even really even desire to eat anymore. As like many yogis and monks and so on, like if you're truly there, like you can reach those states where you even eat less, you even everything, like sleep less, have sex less, you don't have the desire to reproduce, anything like that. So this is really what I'm speaking about when I'm saying the God and the devil. However, these are actually the true God and devil, so to speak. So, but where I'm saying that the devil is a scapegoat, I am actually there, like in that instance, I actually am speaking kind of about the religious ideas of what the devil is. And obviously it doesn't even matter if you're saying, Lucifer or this or Satan or like which word you give it or anything, but really it's just basically the negative energy, the negative force of nature. That's basically all it's encapsulating. You could say there's the positive, which you could say is God, which I wouldn't really even say that like per se, because God and the absolute is both. That's why I even like to use more like Jesus is like embodies the positive, Satan embodies the negative, but the absolute isn't, like Jesus isn't the absolute either. The absolute is both of them. However, Jesus was more accurate and more aligned because the positive is more aligned with the absolute, which I've explained in all my like past videos if you watch those as well. But yeah, so in this instance where I'm saying the devil was a scapegoat, I'm actually speaking more about the idea of the devil, like that evil force, that evil person that's pulling the strings in the background, who hates God, who's trying to make everything bad, make everything suffering, who wants everything for itself. That kind of energy, that force. It doesn't even need to be a person per se. It could either just be a spiritual force. It doesn't really matter. And I'm saying that thing there, the devil, the idea of an external devil that is like, that is kind of like, that you're subject to, that's making your life shit, or that's so on and so forth, that's tempting you. That devil is a scapegoat. See, as I said, the true devil is actually the ego, and you're the ego. Like who you think you are, who you believe yourself to be, your self-image. You believe yourself to be a human with a body, a physical body. You believe yourself to be like your thoughts and your beliefs, like what you believe, what you stand for. That's what you think you are. But you're actually none of those things. See, that's the real ego. That's the real devil force, which is the ego, the false self, the incomplete self, the relative self, which masquerades as the absolute self, which masquerades as the true self, even though it's the false self. That's literally what the false self does. It masquerades as the true self. And it will infinitely deny that it is the false self. So when I tell you you're the ego, you're going to say, no, I'm not the ego. Like I have an ego, but I'm not my ego. That's what you're going to say. But that's the ego saying that. That's what I'm saying. That's the ego's mechanism. Like the ego is not something small. Like it's not like even though I'm saying really it doesn't exist, but it's like, it's a very large, like that's your whole mind's like operating system. You can't even make sense of reality or perceive anything without the ego. So that's the true devil, the real ego, which is you. And what the real devil does, the way the devil really works, is going to start imagining that there's an external devil out there. Him, that devil behind the curtain, he's the one that's doing it, not me. Him, that devil, the devil from the Bible, like he's like there in hell or like in the spiritual realm, like whispering to me, like controlling what I do, controlling what I say, tempting me. It was him, the devil. He did it, not me. See, that's how the devil will operate. Is basically, in a sense, like it's like a mind hack. Like it's basically incepted, even though it is basically your brain, your psyche, but it's in a sense incepted your brain. And it's going to act as if it's you now. And it's going to say, no, the real devil's out there behind the curtain. Don't worry about here. Listen to me and beware of that devil behind there. And then as you're being aware of that devil, you're turning a blind eye to the real devil, which has incepted into your brain. That's how the real matrix works. It makes you think that there's another devil back there. Like, don't worry about me, worry about him. But really, you should worry about the guy that says, don't worry about me. You should you should be skeptical about the guy that says, trust me. And see, it's going to masquerade as you. See, even though, yes, you're not really the ego, really you're the absolute self, but all your thoughts, everything, like the real self can't think. The real self can't do anything because it's absolute. It doesn't even have a form. So your real self isn't doing anything. So the one that's thinking, that's in a sense the devil thinking for you. The ego, the false self, the self-image, which is masquerading as the real self. And it'll do that through all kinds of impressions, your own imaginations, your own dreams, your own thoughts. It'll suggest to you. But you as the self, in a sense, you have the capacity to believe that or disbelieve that. But see, when you're self-biased to yourself, this is pretty much a lot of people's problem in modern society, is that they're skeptical of everyone else. They're skeptical of what he says. They're skeptical of what he says. You're skeptical of what I say. That's good still. You should be skeptical. Because if you're just naive and you just believe everything in an ambiguous situation, you're going to get taken advantage of. You're going to get scammed. You're going to get all these kinds of things, get trapped. So you should be skeptical. But the problem is where you're skeptical of everyone else, but you have absolute trust for yourself. When you believe everything that you think and you disbelieve what everyone else thinks, then that's going to lead to self-deception necessarily. And you're going to be completely closed-minded, block yourself off from growth, block yourself off from becoming more accurate and have a more accurate outlook and paradigm on what's actually going on. And see, it's kind of like the classic arrogance. Like, if you think you know for certain what the truth is, but you're actually wrong. Like, if you're right, then you're right, cool. But if you actually believe that you know the truth is, but you're actually wrong, which is the position that 99% of humankind is in right now. The problem is that it's not just that they're wrong, but they know that they're wrong and they're open to learning. It's that they're wrong and they think that they're absolutely right and they're completely closed-minded and they're stuck as a block and they're never going to progress. And it's not even that someone else is limiting them, it's that they're limiting themselves. See, because you are the absolute. You are really, in actuality, you are the true self. So only you can limit yourself. Others can only suggest to you that you're limited. And then if you believe them, you will limit yourself for them. So this is how the elites do it to the masses. Because all the masses have the power. That's why they're trying to control the masses. Because if they had no power, you wouldn't even need to control them. It's the masses that have the power because they can all choose. But what the elite has realized is that they can suggest certain things to you through repetition and brainwash you into believing something that's not even true. And then when you believe it, you're going to make it true. And then you're going to think that they was right all along, but you made them right. So the devil, an external devil, or demons, or any others, you think that the others did it. Like, this doesn't even just have to be on a spiritual level. This could be on a human level. Where you think, oh, no, like, I'm not to blame. It's those other humans. Those evil humans over there. Or those evil humans over there. The ones behind the curtain. The elites. The selfish ones. Not me. I didn't do anything. And then, see, you're going to look away. But realize, see, and then you're going to look away from everything evil that you're doing. Everything selfish that you're doing. And you might think, all right, cool, yeah, I'll do that. But then just me changing, like, that's not going to really change much, so on and so forth. I'm going to get worse results. Like, if I'm true in every situation, like in this like inside out backwards world where you perform better if you lie in many instances and so on. So I'm going to have to lie. And so, like, see, and that's where people kind of sell their soul and conform to the devil in a sense. Because they're trying to survive as that limited form. Yeah, see, it doesn't even just have to be on this. So this can be on a spiritual level, like it can be on a human level where you believe it's those evil humans over there. And then when Yeah, so I remember what I was saying now. See, and then you think it's them humans, and then you might say, oh yeah, if I had changed, like it's not going to really change too much. That's true, but see, if everyone does that, then we're only going to get change if everyone starts changing themselves instead of blaming others. And you have to realize that all those evil people that you're blaming, the only way that they're even capable of being so evil is because they're using the same ego mechanism that you're using. Of course, it could be more extreme and they could be doing more evil things and so on. I'm not denying that. But they're using literally the same rationalization. They're saying, oh, well, look, everyone else is evil, so I just have to be the most evil to win. And then you just fall into the fucking, and then you just bow down to Satan. That's literally what you're doing. You sell your soul to win. Like, I heard one thing, some guy said, selling your soul for candy. That's literally basically what you're doing. It is actually quite funny because that's true. Don't sell your soul for candy. Candy's never worth it in the end as well. I'm going to make another video on that, the honey trap, and how we live in the age of sweet poison. Yeah, I'm going to make a video on that. That's going to be quite good. So yeah, like, as you're blaming those others, you're not taking response. See, all of this, all these scapegoats and blaming others and victim mentality is all about, it's very simple. You're not going to like it. It's not going to sound fun, but it's literally all just about avoiding responsibility. That's all it's about. It's about avoiding and denying your own responsibility. Because everyone's responsible. There's no one party or one person who did all of this. This is an amalgamation of everyone. Reality is an amalgamation of every single like subjective view kind of overlapped and we give birth to like the reality like that, the matrix like that. The matrix is like a amalgamation of all the individuals. That's the collective. See, so, and the more you blaming others, the more you're not working on yourself. The more you're a victim mentality, the more you're defeated, and you're not even going to think that you can win. You're going to like get this trained hopelessness. This is what they want by this brainwashing. They're going to give you this trained hopelessness to where you think that anything you do doesn't make a difference. You're already defeated. What can we do against the elite? Like, they've already won. We're already defeated. Might as well give up. See, that's what they're suggesting to you, and that's what you're buying it. And that's how the real devil works. To where you're blaming others when it's actually you. You're the one who's creating reality through your actions, through your perceptions. So as long as you believe in like some external devil or like external demons that like you can't see, that are operating in the like spiritual realm, and then you can't see them, but they're pulling the strings behind the scenes somewhere. Like, see, I'm not even saying that it's necessarily that's not the case, but even if they are there, that doesn't even matter. And I'm not even saying I'm not saying that they're there. I'm not saying that they're not there. And really, you're the one if they are there, you're the one that's imagining them into existence and giving them power through your attention as God. So blaming external demons, pulling strings behind the curtains, blaming an external like devil down there, trying to pull you down. That's another scapegoat. Demons are a scapegoat. Blaming other humans, that's a scapegoat. Blaming like the laws of nature or other animals, that's a scapegoat. You have to start taking back responsibility, because you can only like selling your soul is like giving away your responsibility, giving away your sovereignty, and giving away your own authority to the others. See, by you believing in the devil and thinking that he's the one that's doing it, you're giving the devil power. If you say, the devil, you think the devil can control me? Schmuck. Like, the devil, he might try and do it, but then you're just going to brush him off. What can the devil do to me? The devil? Imaginary. What's that? A word? The devil. See? So yeah, and even just as I've explained, really the ego is the devil, but there's this new kind of like way that people use the word the ego, where even that is like even if they don't realize that the ego is the devil, where they just say just the ego, like where they're speaking about it, even that can be a scapegoat to where they say, oh, like that wasn't me, that was my ego, or like, oh, I only did that because I have a big ego or something. You're speaking as if your ego isn't you. Like when you're speaking as I, that's the ego speaking. Like I is the ego's name, really. So, like, so anytime you try to say, oh, like, no, that was like because of my ego, because that bruised my ego, that's why I did it. Or like like something like as if your ego is basically like basically this whole idea of the ego is like it's basically this imaginary internal other. Like you say like, oh yeah, there's the real me, and then there's the ego, and it's like this imaginary like invisible person who's like it's like a split personality. Like, oh, it was me or it was my ego. Like there's not two yous, there's only one self, an individual, which means you're indivisible. Like a true unit, one can't be divided lower. Then you can say, oh, divide it into 0.5 or 0, but see, then it's only really, you're just setting back the decimal point, and then 0.00, like 0.01 or 0.1, that's still another unit. That's just going more into the microcosm. And then like 1, 10, 100, 1,000, like that's going into more the macrocosm, but it's all just units. Like one, and like a really individual one, like it can't be divided further. It's indivisible. So the self is indivisible. There's only one of you. It's not like anytime you think, oh no, my ego did it. No, it was you. You're just blaming an imaginary like concept that the ego doesn't exist, really. See, it's just another scapegoat. And see, in the title I said it was God all along. And see, absolutely, when I'm speaking about the true God, which is the absolute, then yes, it was God all along. All the good stuff, all the bad stuff, all the truth, all the falsehood, all the illusions, everything, it was God in the end. Like, even if you say it was really, like, the God didn't really do anything because he had his hands off the wheel, but for the fact that he allowed the devil to do it, it was basically still God. Like, the God allowed the devil, he created the devil. So even if the devil did it, see, if I order you to shoot that person and then you shoot them, am I still not to blame? Are you going to only blame the assassin? Think about that. So when we're speaking about the absolute and the real God, then yes, it was God all along. However, when we're speaking about what most people think about when we're saying God, which is like the Christian God, or like, it doesn't even have to be the Christian God or Allah, or it could even be like certain spiritual people, like Shiva, or like who people say, oh, that's not even like a religious God or anything. Oh, Shiva, like that's the real one. But then see, even all these things, it's all like about these ideas of an external God. Even like any God, as long as it's an external God, then even that is also a scapegoat. So not even just the devil, not even just the ego, even God is a scapegoat. And in fact, that's the biggest scapegoat. How many wars have been fought in God's name? If you watch that film, I've said this in one of my past videos as well, but if you've watched that film, where is it? Kingdom of Heaven. That film about Jerusalem and so on. Like that film is a lit film. But look, how many times, inshallah, and then in God, if God wills it. Now, I'm not just speaking only about Islam or anything, but just saying for Christians, saying for Jews, like as long as you get God's stamp, then you'll do anything. You'll kill 1,000 men as long as God willed it. That's your ticket. See, that's the ultimate scapegoat, the ultimate rationalization, the ultimate giving away of responsibility to where you'll commit any atrocity and you don't feel any bad, you don't feel any type of way because it wasn't my responsibility. I was just following orders. See, what happened in 1945 Nazi Germany? I was just following orders. It's the same psychology. So yeah. And I've already said this as well, but yeah, scapegoats can be used both on the human level, which is kind of the more gross level in the relative plane, and also in the spiritual level, which is still in the relative plane, but on the higher levels of the spiritual plane, where it's a lot more subtle, and to where it could even seem to you like you're outside of the dream, and you're nearly outside, but you're not outside yet. And where it's very subtle, and there it's actually even more difficult to be able to see the self-deception, because it's become even more high level. Like, the more conscious you become, the higher level the opponent needs to be to even like kind of still keep you like in the like game. Otherwise you're just going to escape. So in a sense, the more conscious you become, the more like stronger the devil gets, until you just defeat the devil absolutely. And see, so it can be used on the gross level, which is, as I said, like where you're blaming other humans, like I explained earlier, or you're blaming the government, or you're blaming whatever, like anything that's other than your own self. And on the subtle spiritual levels, it's like where you're like where you might be blaming like demons or something, like things that you can't see but you know like probably exist, because you know that reality is infinite. So what's there to stop like demons from like controlling things in the ether or something? Like, just because we can't see them doesn't mean they're not there. And using that kind of logic, and even though that's true, just because we can't see them doesn't mean that they're not there, but also that doesn't mean that they're necessarily there either. You see, those are the more, as you get more subtle, it will start to hit you with illusions that you actually can't falsify. And then by that way, in that uncertainty, you might start to believe them, because you can't disprove that there are demons somewhere behind the curtain, like that it is the archons doing all of this. Like, you can't disprove that. So you might even start to believe it. You see? Even though it's not necessarily true. And if you're being honest to yourself, you don't know if they exist or not. You can only believe it. And you can only believe what you don't know. So just be true to yourself and accept, actually, I don't know. I don't know if archons exist or not. I don't know if demons exist. I don't know if there's a real devil. Have you seen the devil? And yeah, just to conclude it, just I put in quotation marks, it's literally, this is like the whole base of like this whole argument, all these like shunning of responsibility and all this rationalization and using scapegoats and all of that. It's literally just this statement basically. If they did it, then I can't be the one at fault. If they did it, it's not my fault. If it's his fault, it's not my fault. Like, if he did it, it's not me. I'm innocent. See? Just that statement, but in infinite different permutations. Your brain can say it in so many different ways, can rationalize it to you. But that's basically the essence. If they did it, then it wasn't me. And I'm not saying, that, like, if that person, that's like assassin shot that person, that, like, by my logic, that I'm saying that you shot that person, even though it was that other human. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying, like, I'm speaking about the psychology of this rationalization, and how when you are only looking and judging others, you're never judging yourself. And that's how everyone gets away with it. Because that assassin, he wasn't judging himself. He was saying, it's the person who ordered me. And the person who ordered him wasn't judging himself. He was saying, it was for the cause. Like, if we didn't assassinate him, then he would have did a great, evil. And it goes on forever. And it's nobody's fault. How many times have you been in a group situation and then you're working together as a group teamwork and then you get a shit result? And then when you start looking around like, what did we do wrong? No one's to blame. It was no one's fault. See, it's funny how that works, isn't it? So, yeah, I'm going to leave that one there. And let me know what you think of that. And yeah, one last point for the scapegoat video. I was just rewatching it and there was one important point I missed. Just for the ending bit, how I was saying that you can use scapegoats on a human, more gross level, but also on a more subtle spiritual level if you're more highly developed, where the traps become more intricate, more tricky because you're more conscious, so the traps have to be more elaborate to catch you. And one of the I was saying how God is also the biggest scapegoat, but because you actually are God, you are the real self, and you have infinite capacity for imagination and self-deception for illusion. One of the biggest traps is God, the true God, imagining, same way as I said, like your ego in a sense is the devil and is creating an imaginary perception of an external God. So you don't look here, you look over there. And same way for God, God also imagines that there's an external God that did this. So if God is incarnated as a human, you might start to believe in religion and believe in an external God. And in that way, you're not going to be able to realize that you are God. So same way, God also tricks itself. So really, as I said, because the devil ultimately doesn't exist. So you can say it's the devil deceiving God. But as I said, God created the devil, and really the devil is just a way of describing how God deceives itself. So when God is in this shape-shifting mode where it kind of shape-shifts into appearances and suggestions to itself to deceive itself, to appear as something that it's not, that's in a sense like God appearing as the devil. But that's one of the main ones as well. Same way the devil, your ego, starts saying, oh no, look at those evil people, or beware of the demons behind the curtain, or the devil down there. So you turn a blind eye to yourself, and the devil that's like hacked your mind, hijacked your mind in a sense. So you're not looking at yourself and you're trusting your own thoughts, the thoughts that you think you are thinking. Same way the devil does that, in a sense, the same way for God, which is the actual self, which is actually the one that's doing all of this and imagining all of this. It can even imagine an external God. And then if you're a human believing in an external God, then you're never going to realize that you're God. See? And that's even how the manipulation of religion works. And if a strong Christian or Muslim, like strongly indoctrinated, if they hear this video, they're gonna think like, I don't know, I'm an angel of the devil or something. They're gonna think this is complete blasphemy. Like for me to tell you that you're God, they would think that's blasphemy. Even though even in the Bible it says that God is everywhere and God is everything. So how could that statement be true and you're not God? Doesn't make any sense. So yeah, that was just the last little point. I'm gonna leave that there.